Welcome to this interview with Jan Masschelein. We are in Copenhagen for the UNIKE conference, University Futures, at the Danish School of Education, Aarhus University. I'm a PhD student at University of Bristol, Tore Sørensen, and I'm very pleased to speak with you here today. Jan Masschelein. Jan Masschelein is head of the Laboratory of Education and Society at the KU Leuven in Belgium. And we are going to speak about higher education. And I would like first to have a very general question for you. What do you see as the key trends in higher education today in Europe and beyond?
Yeah, so maybe for me the most important thing and the most important challenge is that it seems that for higher education, which for me is in one way or another always related also to university, to the university, that despite the discourses at the starts of academic years where it is always stated that we have to combine research and education, that in fact you see an increasing, I think, separation between education and research, which materializes in the fact that we have two areas. We have the area for higher education, we have the area for European research. So these two areas are different areas. And so this separation, I think, is a very, for me, a big challenge. And it is related to the fact that that within these two areas, they are structured not around, let's say, concrete practices of education or research, but they are structured starting once from the independent learner, that is the higher education space, or the research space, starting from the independent researcher. And so for me, this is a very special way, or very particular way, very particular development that we see in today's policies. So that you could say that European policies are in fact learning and research policies and not education policies. As far as education is referring to the way in which people are doing the practices of research and of learning, including the formal institutions, and so that is apparently going away.
So you call for reclaiming the university as a site for collective public study. So how does that relate to these trends that you point out?
Yes, precisely. So that refers to the fact that for me it is important to claim the importance of the site or of the situation. Yeah. So it is not just about learning. So the idea now, for example, in relation to the higher education space, is that you have that central is the learner, and this independent learner, he tries to make his learning as productive as possible, and he's looking for environments where he can meet, where this demand for learning can be met. So it makes that the site is in a certain way indifferent in the thinking. Whereas I think that we should reclaim the importance of the site. That means of the particular way in which people and things are brought together in certain architectures and gatherings, and that these gatherings they do something in themselves. Mm-hmm. So they are important in themselves because they bring people and things and knowledge, of course, together in a certain way. Mm-hmm. And so the site in itself, and so this site, which I would say in relation to the university, is a kind of gathering where we try to be attentive to what we say, what we do, what we think. So for me, reclaiming the notion of the university is about reclaiming a particular site, would also say a particular pedagogic form where things and people are brought together in a particular way to not only get to know something, but also to put the knowledge in a certain way to a public test. So that is.
So it sounds like there's a challenge when it comes about this notion of universities as sites, particular sites, and then this emphasis on mobility that there is today. And I know that, I mean, then if we try to speak about the challenges, how do you work with this as a university and as a scholar with your students? I know that in your lab in Leuven, you have been working with what you call collective experiments and public studies in various cities. What do you do? What are these practices, and where did the ideas, where did they come from?
Yeah, so indeed, I think in Leuven we try to develop. So my colleague, for example, Maarten Simons, is also very much engaged in setting up collective experiments with students. So involving students not as a kind of those who have to be informed about research, but are immediately engaged in the research. So I myself, since 14, 15 years now, I try to go with students in cities which are most of the time post-conflict cities, to study something about our actual condition, our actual global condition, so to say. And the main point about it is precisely to try to transform the city, if I may say so, the city into a school. So how can we make that the city becomes something that is getting out of its usual context, in which it is, for example, has an economic function, where it has a touristic function, and so on, and where the city gets the opportunity to show us maybe something different. Maybe I can relate it to a question which very often comes up in this discussion about university today and how to change the university and so on. I think that there is still this freedom at the university at the moment. So there is, at least in my context, there is still the possibility to have these, let's say, what I would call these holes in the institutions, which are not so much controlled, not so much occupied, and so where you can still, I think, experiment in this in this way. So transforming cities into schools means precisely to liberate them from all kinds of occupations. And the same goes for the courses. So how can we liberate the school, the courses from the occupations, for example, by the learning policies that ask you that you have to define the outcomes before you start. So can we get rid of this occupation of the course to have a kind of open-ended investigations together with the students?
So does this involve lots of cooperation with local associations, local networks? It sounds like you want to extend the learning sites, the educational sites, to whole cities, to whole communities. Do you have a lot of cooperation partners in these places where you go?
Well, it maybe sounds a little bit strange to say, but we try in a certain way to avoid that. Yes, because I once read the quote by Rancière that, or sentence that Jacques Rancière once used, that it is the gaze of a stranger that brings us to a certain insight. Once you are in a kind of familiar context, and one way to familiarize is to let you explain what you have to see. But the point is precisely also to see for yourself, and then to try to think about what you see. But what very often happens is that we see what we think. So the exercise, it is our exercises, walking exercises, mapping exercises that we do in these cities. They are mainly protocols that are protocols to expose your thinking, to expose your knowledge, and that implies so that you have to try to suspend your thinking and to spend your usual thinking and so we try to be in these cities in a certain way as a kind of strangers, but as students, so not as tourists, not as those who are looking for some return, whatever a return, not for people that are looking for the confirmation of what they think already, but precisely to put your thinking to the test, to that the city can maybe say something to you or show you something, not only about the city, because that is the assumption, not only about the city, but about our actual condition. For example, went with students to Athens 2 years ago. I can assure you that we did not just confirm, and also the students not just go there to confirm our thoughts about Greece these days, but that it really made possible to come to insights and to views on the city which were unexpected, also completely unexpected by myself, because you should see here, I see it not as a tour where I will explain what they have to see, because I don't know what there is to see, but where we are going to see together, whether there is what there is to see, and what we can think about what we see.
Are these practices, are they very community-based in terms of that you have the same group of students working together over time, maybe with the same professors as yourself, or is there a lot of a flow of students coming in and out? To me it sounds like that you have to have a group that is pretty stable.
Well, but the course, this is a 1 year course.
1 year course.
So in that sense, and the trip itself, the visit of the city itself it's about usually between 10 and 14 days that we have a city, but we work on it the whole year, and so it is not just the trip, and so in that sense, this group of students is stable, as you say. Yeah. And maybe it's important also to say that an important element of that practice is to make maps, and maps which we can only make because we are working together. That means that you are dependent on us. You are not the independent learner, but you are depending on the others in order to be able to make the maps and to help you to think. So that's an important element.
Is it something that we can find somewhere? Experiences from these practices, are they available to the outside?
There are some things that are, I think for the moment they are still in Dutch, but you can find some things on the website. Okay. But I am actually writing something about these exercises now, so I hope to publish it in the in the next month somewhere. So that.
How about reactions? Well, we started out discussing, or you spoke about some of the key trends that you see in higher education today. More broadly, have there been any reactions to these kind of practices from colleagues at university or from the public towards this way of thinking about university learning?
Yeah, I think I have been presenting some of these things in different occasions, and I think the reactions of colleagues is rather, I think rather positive. So they see the possibilities, I think, of this way of doing. I also have to say that all these exercises end and have to end. It is a crucial part of the exercises is that they end with a public exposition. Okay. So there is always the invitation to a public at the end. So there must be a public manifestation. So it's not just something that it remains internal. There is always a public element related to that. And also there you see that the reactions are, of course, reactions are positive and negative in both directions. Yeah. That is always the case. But I think in general, I think it's and very often it is also very surprising what comes out of it. It is surprising for me, but surprising also for the students and surprising for the public.
So, for example, in Athens, you had a public event there.
We had not a public event in Athens. Before, in other cities, we had some public events in the city itself. For Athens, we organized, or the students organized, at the end they organized a 4 days open workshop, where they had also interviewed also many. That was they combined all kinds of presentations, a real exhibition that they had made on the basis of the things that they had gathered, but they also had a lot of Skype talks with journalists in Athens, with people in South America to connect it with other issues. So there was a 4-day continuous workshop that they organized, where many people came to the. It was in the middle also of the crisis, the crisis about Greece or surrounding Greece. So there was a lot of interest to it. Yeah.
In the country, yeah. What does it take of the academic staff to be involved in these practices? You said that there is too often this division between research and then teaching in universities. And well, I can imagine that for many professors who are getting into that frame of mind of having this division inside the head, this poses a real challenge. What does it take to be a professor and work with these practices?
So let me maybe say that for me, a professor, a professor is not something that you are. So a professor is not a sociological it's not a sociological category. So it's not because you are appointed by the university as professor that you are professor. So a professor, I think you can become just as a student. Student is not a kind of sociological category. Students and professors emerge at some moments in some situations. And at that moment, the professor, I think the professor is in a way a student, like other students, who is presenting something. So that means that making something public. So it means that you cannot talk about professors without precisely this particular site, the university, where you are confronted with students. You can only be a professor in relation to this situation. So a researcher, I have often discussions with that in my university. So I think that because there is a strong tendency now to try to attract researchers, famous researchers to universities, and so on. You know the talent that has to be attracted, and so there is always the thing. And we should reduce the teaching. We should minimize the teaching because they should. Their frontier research must be done there, and so no teaching. And for the best ones, no teaching at all, and for the others, minimal teaching. No teaching at all. Well, I say go elsewhere. If you come to the university, you can only be a university professor if you teach. If you don't teach, if you don't engage with students, for me that is a very crucial aspect of being a professor, of being at the university. The university is a higher education institution, not a research institution. There is research, but it is academic research, and that means research that is done in public, with the public, in relation to students. That's what academic research is about. That's not the same as you can do research, and there is actually many research institutions and working outside of universities. But if you are at a university, that's something different. That's why I say we have to reclaim the site. And I think for a society, society should think about whether they want these kind of sites, where the knowledge is taken out of the immediate logics of production and is taken for itself because it is related to a taking care of something, taking care of our common world, of the things of our common world. So for me, the reclamation or the reclaiming of the site is a very important thing.
Okay, and there should be space for slow learning, or a slow science rather than a fast science.
But you could say for me it's not so much reclaiming. There is this tendency to go to slow science. But if you bring science in the context of the university, that means if you confront it with students, it will be slowed down. Because you are confronted with students. So you have a hesitation or a slowing down. So the slowing down is the consequence of the way you organize the way you deal with knowledge and you deal with students. That's part of it. So you don't need, apart from that, slow science. The university is a way to slow science down, to complicate science by bringing it, when it functions as a university, by bringing it in this gathering with students. Then it is slowed down. But that's also the reason why these talented researchers don't want to teach, because they see it as a kind of slowing down of their, it is not helping their, what they want to have, fast results. But precisely bringing it in these contexts means to accept that it is slowed down. So,
thanks a lot, Jan Masschelein, for this excellent clarification of your thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you.